Picture this. A young woman stumbles down a busy New York street. She's clearly in distress, but out of the hundreds of people around, not one stops to help. Her cries echo through the cacophony of the city, yet they fall on deaf ears. It's an ordinary day turned extraordinary by a chilling incident that unfolds in plain sight. Let's weave through the throng of bystanders and draw closer to the scene. Here's a woman, her heart pounding like a drum, her eyes wide with fear. She's not an actor in a movie. She's real, and so is her terror. Yet, as she stumbles and falls, as her cries become more desperate, the world around her goes on. It's as if she's invisible, as if her distress is just background noise to the rhythm of the city. In the crowd, heads turn, eyes glance, yet feet keep moving. Why? Because everyone thinks someone else will help, someone else will call 911. This assumption, this diffusion of responsibility, is the very essence of the bystander effect. Think of the countless pairs of eyes that saw her, the countless minds that registered her distress. Yet they all remained just that, bystanders. The woman's pleas for help were lost in a sea of apathy, a sea where everyone assumed that someone else would throw the lifeline. The chilling reality is that this isn't a fictional tale. It's a real-life incident that shook the world and shed light on a psychological phenomenon that's as common as it is shocking. A phenomenon that allows us to turn a blind eye, to ignore a cry for help because we believe someone else will step in. As our heartbeats return to normal and the echo of the woman's cries fades, let's not forget the chilling lesson this tale offers. It's a shocking tale, isn't it? But did you know this phenomenon has a name? It's called the bystander effect. So, what exactly is this bystander effect? The bystander effect, in its simplest form, is a social psychological phenomenon that describes the tendency of individuals to be less likely to help a victim when there are other people present. It might sound surprising, but it's a well-documented and rather common occurrence. Now, let's dig a bit deeper and understand why this happens. At the heart of the bystander effect are two key psychological concepts: diffusion of responsibility and the influence of social norms. Let's start with diffusion of responsibility. This is the idea that the more people there are around, the less any one person feels responsible for stepping in. It's a kind of psychological safety net, where everyone thinks, oh, someone else will surely help. But the paradox is, when everyone is thinking the same thing, no one ends up helping. It's like a game of psychological hot potato, where responsibility is continually passed around until it, unfortunately, drops. Next, we have the influence of social norms. We humans are inherently social creatures, and we are heavily influenced by the behavior of those around us. We look to others to see how to behave, especially in ambiguous or uncertain situations. This is known as social referencing. In the context of the bystander effect, if everyone else is standing by and not helping, we're more likely to do the same, because we interpret their inaction as the socially acceptable response. It's also worth noting that fear of embarrassment or being wrong can also play a part. People might worry about misinterpreting the situation or about making things worse by intervening. This fear can paralyze us into inaction, even when we see someone who might be in need. Now, it's important to remember that the bystander effect doesn't mean we're all cold-hearted or uncaring. It's simply a phenomenon that can occur due to these psychological factors. It's also not inevitable. Awareness and understanding can go a long way towards overcoming it. In essence, the bystander effect is a social, psychological phenomenon that explains why we don't always step in to help when we see someone in need. But remember, understanding this effect is the first step towards overcoming it. In our next scene, we'll delve into the implications of the bystander effect and how it can impact not just individuals, but entire communities. So stay with us as we continue to unravel this fascinating topic. Now that we understand what the bystander effect is, let's delve into its implications. The bystander effect isn't just a fascinating psychological phenomenon, it's a potential threat that lurks in our day-to-day life. When we witness a situation that requires intervention, be it an accident, a crime, or a person in distress, our brain automatically looks around to see how others are reacting. If they seem unconcerned, we subconsciously decide there's no need for us to act. The danger is everyone else is thinking the same thing. This shared diffusion of responsibility can lead to dangerous situations being ignored, sometimes with dire consequences. Let's take this to a setting where many of us spend a significant portion of our time: college campuses. The bustling environment, filled with youthful energy and diverse activities, might seem like the least likely place for the bystander effect to occur. But that's far from the truth. In fact, it's in these very settings that the bystander effect can find fertile ground to manifest. Imagine this: a student is being bullied. Their peers see what's happening but assume someone else will step in. Or perhaps they fear becoming the next target if they interfere. This is the bystander effect in action. The result? The bullying continues, potentially leading to severe psychological harm for the targeted individual. Or consider a more severe scenario: a situation involving alcohol poisoning at a college party. Everyone is having a good time until one person drinks too much. They stumble, slur their words, maybe even pass out. But the party continues, with everyone assuming that someone else will take care of it. The bystander effect strikes again, and this time the stakes are much higher. The implications of the bystander effect extend far beyond these examples. They permeate into every aspect of our social lives, from our online interactions to our behavior in public spaces. They can lead to the perpetuation of harmful behaviors, the normalization of violence, and the silencing of victims. But the most alarming aspect of the bystander effect is its invisibility. We often don't realize we're falling prey to it until it's too late. We rationalize our inaction, convince ourselves that it's not our place to interfere, or assume that help is already on the way. But these are nothing more than excuses that allow us to sidestep our personal responsibility. So, what's the takeaway here? The bystander effect is not just a psychological curiosity. It's a real-world problem with tangible and sometimes devastating consequences. It's a silent accomplice to harm that can thrive anywhere, even in places where we feel most secure, like our college campuses. It's clear that the bystander effect can have serious, even life-threatening consequences. We need to recognize it, understand it, and most importantly, learn how to overcome it. And that's what we'll delve into in our next segment. Stay tuned. The question then arises: how can we overcome this bystander effect? Well, overcoming the bystander effect isn't as daunting as it may sound. With a few simple strategies and a bit of courage, we can all make a difference. Firstly, awareness is key. Recognizing and understanding the bystander effect is the first step towards overcoming it. Once we know about this psychological phenomenon, we can actively work against it. When we find ourselves in situations where help is needed, we can consciously remind ourselves not to fall into the bystander trap. We can't let the presence of others deter us from stepping forward. Another effective strategy is direct intervention. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean jumping into a dangerous situation, but if you see something wrong happening, don't hesitate to intervene if it's safe to do so. This could be as simple as alerting a store manager about a potential shoplifter or stepping in when you see someone being bullied. Your intervention may inspire others to do the same, creating a ripple effect of positive action. But what if the situation is too dangerous for you to intervene directly? That's where the next strategy comes in: calling for help. It's important to remember that being an active bystander doesn't always mean you have to handle the situation yourself. Sometimes the best thing you can do is call the authorities. Dial the emergency services, alert a security guard, or inform someone who can intervene effectively. In doing so, you're still taking active steps to help, thus overcoming the bystander effect. It's also useful to remember the power of numbers. If you are in a group, don't assume that someone else will take action. Instead, single out a person and ask them directly for help. This strategy, known as diffusion of responsibility, can be incredibly effective in prompting others to respond. Moreover, educating others about the bystander effect can have a significant impact. By spreading awareness, we can help more people understand this phenomenon and encourage them to act when they see someone in need. We can all play a part in creating a society where the bystander effect is less prevalent. Lastly, practice empathy. Put yourself in the shoes of the person in need. How would you feel if no one stepped in to help you? Empathy can be a powerful motivator in compelling us to act. Overcoming the bystander effect is about stepping out of our comfort zones and taking responsibility. It's about choosing to make a difference, no matter how small. It's about realizing that we have the power to change outcomes, to potentially save lives. It's not easy, but with awareness and proactive steps, we can certainly overcome the bystander effect. College students, this one's for you. How can you avoid falling into the bystander trap? Let's delve into specific strategies that can help you steer clear of the bystander effect while you're in college. Remember, the key is to be an active participant in your community and to assume responsibility for the safety of your peers. Firstly, cultivate awareness. Familiarize yourself with the bystander effect and its implications. Understand that inaction can have consequences just as severe as wrong action. This awareness will make you more likely to recognize situations where you could potentially fall into the bystander trap. Secondly, develop empathy. Put yourself in the shoes of others. Imagine how it feels to be in a situation where help is needed. Empathy can often spur us to action when we might otherwise stay on the sidelines. Next, practice taking action. Start with small steps. If you see a classmate struggling with their coursework, offer to help. If you notice someone being excluded or bullied, stand up for them. These actions build a habit of intervention that can translate to larger situations. Another important strategy is to learn basic first aid and emergency response. Having these skills can give you the confidence to step in when someone is in physical danger. Finally, foster a sense of community. Encourage your peers to be active bystanders too. Share what you've learned about the bystander effect. Remember, a community that looks out for each other is stronger and safer. In conclusion, avoiding the bystander trap in college is about more than just stepping in during a crisis. It's about building a culture of empathy, responsibility, and active participation. It's about recognizing that we all have a role to play in creating a safe and supportive community. Remember, college is a time for learning, not just academically, but also about how to be a responsible and caring member of society. So we've learned about the bystander effect, its implications, and how to overcome it. Let's take a moment to reflect on what we've covered. We began with an emotional tale, a real-life incident that highlighted the tragic consequences of the bystander effect. This heartbreaking story served as a stark reminder of the devastating effects of inaction. It's not just about being a passive observer, it's about the lost opportunities to make a positive impact when we choose to look away. We then unraveled the bystander effect, peeling back the layers to reveal the psychological processes at play. We discussed how the diffusion of responsibility and the fear of social embarrassment can paralyze us into inaction. Understanding these underlying factors is the first step towards overcoming the bystander effect. We moved on to discuss the implications of the bystander effect, particularly in a college environment. We explored how it can perpetuate harmful behaviors and create toxic cultures. But we also highlighted the power of a single act, how one person stepping up can create a ripple effect, inspiring others to do the same. Next, we discussed practical strategies to overcome the bystander effect. From increasing our awareness to practicing active empathy, we shared tips that can help us move from passive observers to active interveners. Remember, it's not about becoming a superhero. It's about recognizing our capacity to make a difference and taking small but significant actions. And finally, we talked about avoiding the bystander trap in college. We emphasized the importance of creating safe and supportive environments where everyone feels empowered to step up and speak out. Knowledge is power. Empower others by sharing this video. If you found this information valuable, do subscribe to our channel for more insightful content. Together we can make a difference. We can make a